The weather not so cooperative today, but it's always sunny in the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It is brought to you by St. Luke's Penn Foundation. As always, I am joined by my friend Amie Alandson Dundon. Amie, good morning to you. How are you today?
I'm fine, Crockett. Good morning to you. It's lovely to see you on this rainy morning.
Excellent. Well, we'll save all the existential questions we were just discussing for another podcast. But today, we are getting ready to talk about our kiddos and coming home from school and getting ready for summer and all that good stuff. And we have got a special guest with us today, Dr. Alycia Walty. We had a whole conversation about that before we started. Dr. Alycia Walty, she's the Chief Medical Officer for Star Community Health. Dr. Alycia, we'll work it all in there. How are you this morning? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I'm well, thank you. It's both my kids' last day of school this year, so it's a very appropriate topic for us.
This is, we are entering the trenches, yes. Parents here. I mean that in a loving way, a wonderful way. But yes, that is the conversation that's going to be today, because as much as it is a transition for everyone involved, parents, kids, everyone here. So, Dr. Walty, I'm going to start with you here. What are some common challenges children face when shifting from a structured school schedule to a more relaxed summer routine? I use relaxed loosely, by the way.
Relaxed for them, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah.
Most obvious is obviously sleep. Kids do extremely well when they're kind of on an automatic routine. So when they do the same thing at the same time every day, and emotionally and mentally, they do well when they know exactly what it is they need to do to be successful. So sleep, diet, lack of access to their friends, that social part and that social activity that's really vital for them at that age. And really the other supportive adults that they see during the school day. So their teachers, their counselors, their aides, their bus drivers, the people that they have that informal relationship with, and then changes in levels of acceptance and independence, so both more and less. A lot of kids go from constant supervision to being more or less latchkey, and kids will go in the other direction as well, where they had some independence, but now they're at home, and perhaps their parents work at home, and they've got someone breathing down their neck all the time. So all of those things that change, again, both positive and negative, are really tricky for kids.
It's interesting, Amie, I want to pivot to you there, because to borrow Dr. Walty's words, breathing down their necks. It's interesting because this school year in particular for me, my son is 5, my daughter is 9, and she's very much getting in the I'm too cool for you phase. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of our first summer where it's not all summer camps and swimming pools, where it's kind of like, leave me alone. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to do my thing.
Just wait,
this whole
it gets
thing.
better. Just wait.
I've heard nothing but wonderful things from here. Amie, just kind of that process for parents in kind of any phase. If you've got, to Alicia's point, if you've got the young kiddos who really, you really need to give a structure and give those things to, versus some of the older kids that are ready to kind of going from that independence to all of a sudden back into a structure. Parents just maintaining, I was going to say structure, but a household, just maintaining a household in this process as we get into summer.
Yeah, I think for there's not a right formula, right? I think every family's different. Every kiddo dynamic is different in terms of how mature they are and what they can handle and what they can't handle. And honestly, parents, how mature parents are and what parents can handle and can't handle. Sometimes it's really important for parents to build structure, and not only for the kids, but for themselves, so that they kind of have a map of the day, because it can go south very quickly when you've got kids at home with zero to do. And then the other part of this is parents work, right? Most families are 2-income households, and they can't devote all of their time all summer to the children. There are other responsibilities. So it's figuring out the balance of, when's my child old enough to have some alone time? How mature are they? Are they responsible enough? And then emotionally, how are they able to regulate themselves if there's not an adult right there all the time? Because things go wrong or change quickly, and if a child has difficulty pivoting emotionally and there's not an adult right there, I mean, that can make things a whole lot more stressful for the whole family. So I think it's about sitting down as a family, if you have a 2-parent household, sitting down together and deciding without the children present, what's this going to look like? What do we need it to look like? We need to be a unified front. mapping out schedules, mapping out a plan. It's very important, and that plan needs to include, chores and screen time limitation and exercise and all the things that Dr. Walty just talked about with sleep and nutrition.
Alycia, I kind of want to pivot to you on that one because we're all joking aside a bit. I feel like I myself in particular have gone about this conversation a little bit loosely as we talk about the kids. And the first thing you think of as a parent is just like, oh, the kids are home. What are we going to do? It's going to be chaos and all that stuff. For the kids, as a parent, signs that maybe there is a struggle, signs that maybe this isn't just, I mentioned my 9-year-old is a sweet kid, but we are already talking about that pivot that's being made in her life. For you, for signs that a parent should be looking for that perhaps there is a struggle going on with being home in the summer. Sure.
Unfortunately, a lot of the signs and symptoms that you would see with that are the same things that you would expect to see with a not super engaged teenager sleeping in bed in the summer anyway. Anybody that knows me, all of my patients know I say the same thing all the time. Kids have 3 jobs. So they need to grow, they need to be healthy, they need to learn things academically, so they need to actually be learning and kind of growing their brain, and they need to learn social cues and social activities and learn how to be around other people. So it's when those 3 things or any one of those 3 things are being affected. So if you notice that your kid is really not eating, really not sleeping, or the opposite, sleeping literally, 18 hours a day, going to bed all the time, sleeping all the time during the day, eating more or less. So now this kid, during the school year is really pretty disciplined, has a regular 3 meal a day, 2 snack kind of thing, and now all they've done is eat literally since they got home, or the opposite. They're doing whatever it is that they're doing and they're not eating. Or socially, to your point, if you notice a really big difference, all kids are going to go through some mood changes and some irritability during the summer. But if your, previously rather peaceful and cooperative kid is now not peaceful and not cooperative, that's going to be an issue. If they're not helping you, they're not doing the things that are expected of them in the household, and I like how you use that word, in that structure, then yeah, that's going to be an issue for you. And it's something to definitely bring up first as a family and first with them, give them the chance to kind of explain themselves, but you can always bring it up later with a professional. So.
Amie, I kind of want to come to something Alycia said there, those 3 things: grow healthy, learn things, and social cues. I feel like as a parent, maybe you feel like you can, as she said, the first 2 things to me, particularly with 2 kids under 10, I feel like you can help them grow healthy. You can try to provide as many healthy options as you can in your house and things of that nature. Learn things, with younger kids, I feel like it's easier to, even if they are getting screen time or you're giving them their tablet, perhaps, haha, joke's on you, this game is actually a math game. It's actually a spelling game, things of that nature. I kind of want to talk about these social cues, and we keep coming back to the conversation about independence. I kind of take a look at our teenagers, our tweens, that kind of age, where maybe you are going from I don't want to call it a forced social interaction, but if you are going to a school, you're not homeschooled, you're going to a school, you're going from a scenario where you are in a consistent social interaction to now a summertime where perhaps that's not so much the case. I'm interested in some of those ideas of perhaps making social environments not forced, because I feel like at that age, if you tell a kid you're going to this person's house, you're going to hang out, that's not setting you up for success. But I'm curious as to perhaps what some of those scenarios could look like, especially with that older kid, and just kind of setting them up in a social environment, kind of in the same way as I was mentioning with the younger kids with the tablet, where you don't actually know that, hey, you're learning while you're playing this game. Maybe I'm putting you in a social situation that you just weren't expecting it to be this way.
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to what are the strengths of that teenager, right? If they're a sports kid, then perhaps sports camps, and maybe not necessarily, if there's not a camp for their age group, maybe they could be a counselor for younger groups, sports camps, or church camps, whatever it is wherever their interest is, you can find activities. If they're a gamer, right? If they're a video gamer, there are literally camps, gaming camps over the summer. So it can lie within their field of interest, but it's about connecting with other human beings. It's about having the ability to have a face-to-face interaction with somebody and interact and be able to learn social cues so that I can grow up and be a human being that's going to be able to interact with other adults in my society and succeed, right? So summer is a really important time for kids to have a little downtime, right? Important. School is stressful. The rigors of school and some of the pressures at school take a big toll. So summer's there for a reason, right? For people's mental health. But summer with no structure isn't good. So socially, I also think it's important to not get all of your social interaction when you're a teenager on video games. I think it's important to have some face-to-face interaction that involves talking and learning about other people. So it can look like anything.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to really be formal. One of my sons is a pretty avid skateboarder at this point, and so just having the ability to take him to some of the skate parks. I know Penn Foundation's even involved in a couple of the skate parks, I think in Quakertown. There are going to be other kids with shared interests there. So it doesn't even need to necessarily be a formal camp or a formal setting. But, if you do, I keep coming back to skateboarding, but there are local skateboarding shops where that's where those kids are hanging out. There are local places where a lot of the more artistic kids hang out. NCC has tons and tons of free or low-cost options for kids where it's really not structured education, but they're going to find kids that have shared interests with them. And that's where a lot of it is. No matter how hard we try as parents, we are not going to be cool. We are not the people, and developmentally that's appropriate. They should not want to spend all of their time with us by a certain age. Otherwise, they will never leave, and that's problematic. So we want to encourage them to be able to find other people that have those kind of shared interests as well.
So I kind of want to go back to our younger kiddos here for a little bit, in that I feel like we get a pretty good read on our kids when they've had enough fun. That it almost does feel like you could see the batteries running low a little bit. And it's hard because you want to, as I think as parents, you want to try to make, I know for myself and my wife, we want to make our summers as memorable as possible. We could try to get as much in as we can in that period of time before the school routine picks up. And I feel like for a lot of parents, maybe that's where the idea of structure sits in that kind of school frame where things loosen up a little bit in the summer. But Alycia, I want to come to you. How can families build a summer routine that kind of balances rest, play, and learning? Like I said, my kids, it literally looks like a battery pack is being taken out, but just trying to find that appropriate balance in your household.
So it's about structure that isn't really structured, and setting expectations. And I think most of us are really good at this in the beginning of the summer. Like, okay, every day you have these this is what we expect of you. And even if it's not every day, it's, 3 times a week you need to read for 30 minutes or an hour. And these are your regular household expectations. You need to take the garbage out. You need to clean the bathroom. You need to vacuum, whatever it is. But not necessarily saying it has to be Monday at 4 or Tuesday at 3. So once you set up what your expectations are for the kids, even the younger ones, we're going to have the same bedtime every night. That's not going to happen. I'm just letting you know now. That's a terrible example, but you could.
Tell me about
or,
it. Yeah.
You're going to wake up at least by 8 o'clock every day. So there have to be some boundaries and expectations, and then the rest of it within is choice. Okay, so do you want your free time? Do you want to get on your tablet? Do you want to just chill out and do whatever? That's fine, but we still have expectations of you over the summer and over the course of the week. So you have options, you have varieties, and you set up so that they have choices in the matter. You don't necessarily have to go to your room and play independently right now. You can get on, you can have your screen time, or you can go outside, or you can do this. But as long as they have a few options to choose from, generally they're going to do pretty well with that. And again, it's about that consistency. I think we're all really optimistic and think that we're fabulous teachers and parents. And we set up, it was like during COVID, we set up like, those fake classrooms at home where everybody switched everything every hour. That lasted 7-ish hours in my house, maybe 8. So don't make it too structured because you won't stick with it. It's like an exercise pattern. After a couple of weeks, they're not going to do it if you have something dictated every hour, every half an hour, every 30 minutes. It's got to just be kind of a loose framework with choices. They have to be able to have a little bit of choice.
Yeah, and I would say you also, within those choices, have to still have an accountability, whatever that looks like for your household. But maybe it's if they're tasked with reading 5 books over the summer, they check off every time they finish one. And then at the end of those 5 books, you go out for ice cream or something. But some sort of, it's not just going to be you can decide between this, this, and this, but you still have, we're teaching our kids to be responsible grown-ups. So there is a productivity expectation.
I wanted to kind of follow up on something you had said as well about like it's educational, but you don't really know it's educational. It's the same as when you're like putting vegetables in purees and they don't necessarily know that they're getting in there, but my kids do now. There are really creative ways that you can get out and do it. There are a ton of historical parks and parks out that are completely free that are here in the Lehigh Valley and surrounding that have educational centers. So you can like accidentally wink, wink, wander into the educational center when you're going to hike. Like if you're going to Jacobsburg Park, there are a ton of educational activities that are set up there that are free, and you could accidentally wink, wink, be going swimming in the river there at the same time that they have it. So there are tons of options for that. There are, believe it or not, there's a lot of educational content on YouTube and other things like that. There's, my kids love Mark Rober. He was a NASA engineer. He builds the things that he does are hilarious. They're funny and they're completely science-based. A lot of teachers use this education in school. So I have often told my kids, like, you can watch YouTube, but you can watch these 3 guys. These are the 3 people that you need to watch. Mr. Beast, by the way, is not one of them, so sorry. But the other guy, he's kind, not educational. So there are ways that you can kind of find things that they are going to be interested in that you're not necessarily forcing it down their throat. But again, my kids now know all my tricks, so I'm done. I can't talk anymore. Yeah,
there's also aquariums and art museums and even going to a baseball park. You can do a walkthrough of the park and look at plaques and look at old historical things. So yeah, you can build learning into anything, and make it fun.
It's funny. Alycia, you mentioned YouTube. My big thing with the kids is when they want to watch it, it's nonsense. Don't watch anything with nonsense. Watch something that at least challenges your brain a little, amuse me and challenge your brain a little bit as perhaps you're looking into those things. I want to talk about boredom and loneliness a little bit here in summer, because as we're discussing looking for options and kind of trying to gauge shared interests, to borrow Alicia's phrase, parents, we are not cool. So I'm curious, Amie, I'll go to you on this one. If I'm looking for, let's use skateboarding as an example, as Alycia said, like I've never been a skateboarder in my life. If all of a sudden one of my kids gets a really big interest in it, chances are I really don't even know where to begin to look for kind of age appropriate, something that I would feel comfortable with my kids necessarily being a part of. So whether that's skateboarding, if it's football, if it's whatever it might be, I'm curious for the not cool parents out there, her words, not mine. Amie, where would you say is a good place to kind of find resources? Is it just talking to other parents? I know we always talk about the internet can be a dangerous place to take a deep dive, but just maybe some places where parents can look to kind of at least get an on the surface read on maybe some of those things that their kids are interested in.
Yeah, I think don't forget your schools, guidance counselors, administration are there. They work during the summer, so you can always call the schools and say, hey, I have a kid interested in this. What do you guys know about? So reach out to your schools. Yes, co-parents, other parents, but also your child's pediatrician, right? Your child's pediatrician or their office staff and their office staff are going to know kind of some things that are going on and around you. You can, certainly Google local go on Google and do a search for activities that are interesting. So there's lots of ways to find those things, but I would say those are probably the best place to start.
Yeah, I would also look at local colleges. So local community colleges, local colleges, they generally will have weekend events. The Pennsylvania park sites, the local government and state of Pennsylvania both have a ton of events that go on during the summer that are educational, whether they're in the state parks, things like that. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be something even that structured. I mean, overwhelmingly, most parents at this point have some app that they can watch movies in. Pick a historical movie that's age appropriate for the kids, and that's your night, for movie night. You will have less parent guilt. They will have learned something, and you will have all actually watched a movie together. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be something, like, to your point, cool, because that ship sailed.
Right, pick a documentary on something that the kids are interested in, and at the end of it,
tons of sports. ESPN 60s are fabulous. I know my teenager really enjoys those. So
yeah.
I was going to say, when you say historical movies, I can only assume you mean the 90s and The Sandlot is pretty much what I'm getting at.
100%. All three of the Karate Kids have a lot of historical context. And so
there we go.
Those are, but really only the first two count. So
yeah, well, get the popcorn. Yeah, it's always the third one that falls off the cliff. But get the popcorn ready. I want to talk. One of the things that I always remember thinking was so cool in the summer was seeing classmates or friends that I had at school outside of school. Like, it was like almost unheard of. You would see somebody at the mall or something, and you would just be like, oh my, can you believe that the stars align that we're here right now? I want to talk a little bit about continuing that social connection. And I think I'll come back to that tween teenager age where maybe for me, it was always sports. I found something to do with sports. That was a big part of my childhood. And that I feel like is almost, I don't want to say easy, but you can kind of, even if you're not sure that your kid's going to love it, you can find a camp. Or if they like basketball, put them in a basketball camp. And they might not love it, but you feel like, okay, maybe this is something that they could do. For parents that are maybe trying to find, are looking, are searching, and a big part of this I'll come to as well is, I coach a 9 and 10-year-old soccer team. Not all of those kids love soccer. I can tell you that much. But a big part of that is I feel like my part of a responsibility as a coach is to, you might not be Ronaldo, but I'm going to make sure that you're coming out there and having fun and running around, learning all those things. So there's some responsibility there. But just, Alycia, I'm going to come to you on just kind of trying to maybe, for your kid that doesn't have that thing that they've quite found yet, as a parent, maybe trying to help them find that thing. Is it literally just, you keep mentioning your local community colleges and things like that nature. Is it as simple as putting a piece of paper down and just being like, look, we got to do something this summer. Can you pick a couple of things on here that you might like, that you might think could be interesting to you?
Yeah, I think I keep picking educational stuff because I'm a geek. And I intentionally have not mentioned sports because of me. But I think, it really is saying, and again, it kind of goes back to what we said before, the expectation is that this is not just that you are going to eat Doritos and watch YouTube all day. So part of what we are doing is that you have to do something. Pick. And again, it's all about those choices. So you don't want to send your kid to your point, soccer camp in the heat if they're going to really resent you for the rest of their lives because it's awful. But there needs to be, not that that's happened, but there needs to be some expectation. So do you want to do a sport? Do you want to do an art? Do you want to do something else? Like I'm making these things up. There's free painting class that we can do at the library. Oh, the library. We didn't talk about the library is a great place to find ideas.
Great.
If you just set foot into one of your libraries, you'll have tons and tons of ideas for activities and what's there as well. But you need to do one of these three things. You need to either do the sport, do this kind of learning thing, or you need to, tell me who your friend is that you want to go hang out with. And again, let them have that option. Let them pick. But the expectation is that they are going to pick one of those things. Yeah. And then they have to stick with it, too. They can't just wiggle out of it after 2 times. So.
Well, I think that's a hard part of being a parent too, right? Is if you see that your kid is miserable and going to resent you for the rest of their lives, as you so eloquently said, Alycia. Amie, how do we listen? We thought we made a good decision. How do we? I've used this phrase in this show before. If we come to that point, it's a know when to hold them, know when to fold them kind of a situation. At what point do we maybe push our hands back from the table and say, oh, okay, we'll chalk this
Amie,
up.
when do we stop pushing our kids? When does that happen?
We push our kids forever, right? That's just part of being a parent. It's part of our job. But it's also important for us to know where that boundary is. If a kid is so stressed out with whatever they thought they were going to like the art class, and now they're just crying and in a fetal position in the corner, we can't push them to the point of harm, right? So we need to know emotionally, physically, when it's too much for them. So if it's just I want to go to the park and hang out with my friends and throw rocks at swing sets, no, you're going to go to art class, right? But if it's a serious, legitimate pain, emotional or physical, then we have to know when to step back and say, okay, you know what? Let's regroup. Right? As long as it's not it's not something that's going to affect them negatively. Like if they don't want to, if they don't want to, ever eat a vegetable again, and you're not going to step back and say, okay, you don't ever have to eat a vegetable again.
Sure.
We don't that's, we have to figure out where that healthy balance is. But when our kids are in distress, then we need to get them therapy. Sometimes summer's a good time for kids to get into some psychotherapy to really process the stress of being a kid and being a human in the world, right?
And it's a great time to prepare if you were having any kind of emotional or academic challenges with behavior that affected your academics. In the previous academic year, it's a really nice time to work on kind of getting those things straightened out without actually having to be going to school at the same time. So it's a nice time for us to kind of work on things like mild anxieties, mild depressions, sleep problems, learning problems, things like that. It's a great time to try to get a little bit more focused and some more clarity on those things. Just to follow up on your kind of, when to fold them, all of that. It's picking your battles. And if you can, you're not really giving up on anything. You're just changing it. So, okay, that's fine. You don't want to do soccer because I put you into therapy because I made you go to soccer, and that's fine. So what else are you going to do instead? Because it's not just going to be downtime. You want to make sure you're not giving in because they don't want to do anything.
Right.
And that's important.
Right.
So.
Dr. Walty, I want to come back to
Please
idea
don't ask me any
of,
more sports questions. I don't know the answers. Okay.
in the 1993 World Series. No. I want to come back to, I want to give kids credit because they're going through, especially as you get to those double digits, you're going through a lot of things that you don't even know what the heck is going on, and it's going a million miles an hour. So we've obviously joked about having difficult conversations with our kids and getting too cool and all that stuff. But I want to give kids credit. There's a lot going on that they are trying to process themselves that they've never experienced before. I want to talk a little bit, Dr. Walty, about when as a parent do you decide this is just a teenager having a rough day, this is a teenager maybe having a rough weekend, versus, gosh, I think this is a little beyond just that going through a lot and body changes and school changes. Maybe you're going middle school to high school or elementary school to middle school, or maybe you've moved. Just at what point does it go from maybe, they're just bored, they just haven't found anything to do, to an actual concern about loneliness or feeling like someone might need to talk to a professional, especially at that age?
So I definitely. I want to echo what you had said in the beginning, that they need credit. Being an adolescent and a teenager right now is infinitely and immeasurably harder than it was for us to be teenagers. I'm just assuming you're around the same age as us. That presence of technology brings a lot of good positive things in. I know I mentioned a whole bunch of things about YouTube and education, and all of our answers were, Google this, look this up. But if you have a problem, or you're getting picked on, or you're getting bullied, or you're stressed about a particular thing, there is no escape from it right now. They all have phones. It's at them 24 hours a day. When we came home, generally, if there was a problem at school, it stayed at school. Unless they were going to call you on your house telephone, which very rarely did that actually happen, you at least had some safe options. So that doesn't ever end now, and there's a sense of permanency. You don't get a chance to be kind of goofy and dumb and do all those kind of adolescent things that you're supposed to do, because now people take pictures of it and then it's on the internet for the rest of your life. So it's a very difficult time to navigate being an adolescent with that technology. I would say if you're trying to figure out if your child needs some additional help, take the entire summer part out of it. You know your kids best. You know what your kids are like day in, day out. This isn't your first summer with them. And yes, they're hormonal. And yes, they're going through those changes, but whether or not they're actually attending school or not, if it's affecting those three things, so it's affecting their sleep, it's affecting, their growth, they're not the kids that you are used to having. Those social cues with you and your family are interrupted and not working well. And those regular routine activities, social doesn't just mean other people, it means your family bonds too. If those things are being affected and you're worried, it doesn't matter if they're in school or not. Reach out. Ask us for help. Ask us for a referral. You know your kids best, and you're going to know whether this is just a crappy weekend because there's going to be something nagging in there. And if it is a crappy weekend, fine. What is the harm? If you reach out to someone, chances are you're going to either discover a pattern, find a trend, see something to work on, or you have, some talks with some really nice people and move on, and it never does any harm whatsoever. So be overcautious in that sense.
I love that kind of idea of being overcautious, Amie, as Alycia just said. I'm curious, as we mentioned, it's hard to ignore the phone and social element of all these things and the kind of things that parents we can't see. Amie, I'm going to ask you the question, what bridge do you suppose you should cross first? Is it encouraging them to talk to someone, or listen, you see your kid buried in their phone, maybe there's something going on in there, your own curiosity might be getting the best of you. The approach I guess my question is the approach in saying to your kids who may already be in a little bit of an emotional feel, I want to see that. Can I see what's going on in there? And maybe the best way to approach that, because I feel like, Alycia, to your point, like as a kid, I mean, Facebook for me really didn't even come into my life until I was in college. This is a whole new world for people that are parents, particularly in, I've got 2 elementary school kids. I'm getting ready to roll with this into, high school especially. Amie, the point in time where you step in and you kind of say, I got to get into your privacy a little bit, and the best way to kind of go about that.
So I think the important piece of this is healthy communication. So it's how you say it. I think it should be a standard conversation throughout the year, throughout the week, throughout the day, to say, hey, I'm checking in with you. It seems like you've been just a little kind of down or depressed lately, or I'm noticing that, you haven't showered in 2 days, or whatever that might be.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a
4 days.
Oh, okay, 4.
I'm noticing that you haven't showered in a couple of days.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
We knock on the door, right? Literally and figuratively, and to say, hey, checking in. You okay? What's going on with you? What'd you do today? Who you talking to? What's going on? Listen, your phone and what you're doing on your phone is an extension of who you are. It just is. Society has done that to you. I've allowed that to happen as your parent. You have a phone. That's my fault, right? So, I need to be able to say to you, how is that phone and what you're doing on that phone or that laptop or that iPad affecting you? How are you feeling? Who are you talking to? What are you doing? I have a right to ask that. I'm your parent. And if you refuse to show me what you're looking at, and you can't tell me why, then, you need to take a look at parental controls on phones, which I think should be in place from day one. But if you haven't already done it, I know people that change their home Wi-Fi password every day, and it gets changed when the kids do their chores, and they've done all the things they have to do for that day. The Wi-Fi password, then they get the new Wi-Fi password. So there are creative ways that parents can go about doing that. But it's about checking in and being honest and saying, you know what, we don't all have good days. I'm a little worried about you. You seem a little off. Let's go for a walk. What can we do? It's important to push all the time. There's a new campaign out called Wait Till 8th. And it's a campaign to have kids wait until 8th grade to get cell phones. And there's Facebook groups for every community now on, wait till 8 or wait till 8th. And it's really interesting content. And the premise is that, that's generally 8th grade is kind of the age that kids are a little bit more developed and a little bit more emotionally intelligent to be able to deal with the all-day bullying or negativity or the things that are really hard to process as a littler kid.
I think a lot of it is based on the precedent, and both of you said that, is that, from the minute my kids got their phones, I set up their passwords, they have the parental controls, things like that. It's standard that hand me your phone, let me go through it. Now, I will counter my own argument with the kids are always the smartest person in the room. And so, even if my kids, if they wanted to hide something from me, it would not be hard. And I think that's the case for most teenagers, with most of us that are not as tech savvy. So I can change the password, I can do the Wi-Fi, all that. But if there was an app that I didn't know about that they had hidden, which is possible, I think it's possible, shows you my kids are probably trading stock on the internet and I don't know about it. But they're going to know. I think generally just pulling the phone away is going to create more tension between you and the kid and probably undermine the whole communication piece. I think it would probably, if you're at that point where you're really that concerned, probably that's also a trigger for you to be looking for additional help, some professional help too. It's tricky once you get past even 7th and 8th grade, to your point. It's very hard to be a teenager without having that at this point, because that is their social communication. That's how they get through school. All their assignments are on that. That's where the school apps are. I know those apps. Those apps I know. So it's definitely tricky. I think I know that. Yeah. I have a fake Power School app apparently with fake grades. So it's all really based on the expectation that since they get the device, at any point I'm allowed to say, give it to me, let me see it, let me go through it. Again, they're smarter than me, but maybe we can sort of vent it that way.
Yeah, and it's no different than really going in and searching your kid's room, right? I mean, you're searching their phone, you're searching their room. It's the same concept, right? I can go in and look under your mattress. I can go in and, we have those simulated drug and alcohol rooms now where parents can walk through and have examples of all the places kids might hide marijuana or cigarettes or whatever. It's the same thing in the phone. Kids can hide stuff. So we have to have open from the day your child gets social media or gets attached to technology. You have to be having those important open conversations.
I think we've been taking a very serious path here, and for any younger folks who may be listening, I'm sorry to reintroduce this idea, but school will be back. It will be back around the corner. It is just a few weeks away. Alycia, I'll start with you on this one. As a parent, kids, again, I'm very sorry, but as a parent, when should we start reintroducing new school year routines? Typically, you get to, I always looked at the 4th of July as when I was a kid growing up, the midpoint, I've only got a half a summer left. And then I knew by the time the middle of August rolled around, especially if you're in high school, you're probably playing a fall sport. So your summer, ends a little sooner. So just reintroducing is the word that I think I'd like to use here. When should families start looking to do that to get ready for the new school year?
So the main thing that you're going to need to do is look at the sleep patterns. That's the most important one that you're going to get, and we get that question a lot. at practice, in the practice and during the office appointments. It's going to depend on the age of your kid and the history of your child. If your child is notoriously difficult, you use melatonin, you can't get them to sleep, things like that, you're going to want to start it earlier. Younger kids need earlier times and more time to really get accustomed. So I would say if you've got an elementary school kid, you're probably going to want to start about a week and a half out, if not more than that. If you've got an older kid, a few days is probably, because it's going to be rough no matter what you do. So are you pulling that, honestly, are you pulling the Band-Aid off, quickly or slowly?
Sure.
So a week is probably a good guideline. Younger, 2 weeks. Older, maybe a little bit less. So.
Parenting, right? Am I right?
Yep.
Kids, you think you got it so hard. Try raising yourselves. Well, listen, I think this was an excellent conversation and an insightful one. Amie, I think when we're talking on this show, it's often the word we use quite a bit in this episode was balance. It's trying to find the right time to have the right conversation to kind of mix things up for these kids, especially to try to get them, maybe they're even being too social. Maybe at some point it's got to be like, look, can you sit down in the house with your family so we can watch The Sandlot? But just parents, you're kids, you're not in this alone, I think is essential. Parents, you're not in this alone. There's excellent help out there. Lean on the people that you feel comfortable leaning on. And certainly when the time comes, if you feel like it's necessary, you could turn to excellent professionals like yourselves and just try to keep on one day at a time, kids, one day at a time, parents. That's really the best way I think that we can kind of look at this.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We are all in this together, whether you like it or not. We're all in this. I will turn this bus around.
See?
Well, listen, Dr. Alycia Walty, she's the Chief Medical Officer for Star Community Health. Excellent conversation today. We'd love to have you back anytime. Thank you so much for all the insight you were able to give us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Amie, as always, it's a pleasure, my friend. I'll see you around the bend for the next one, okay? You be well.
You too. Have a great month.
Thank you. It is the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It's brought to you by St. Luke's Penn Foundation. For Dr. Alycia Walty, for Amie, Alandson, Dundon, I am Kevin Crockett. Happy to host, as always, this thing we call the Just Start the Conversation podcast.